We are diving deep into one of the most complex, contradictory, and, I mean, arguably unfathomable deities in the entire Hindu tradition, Lord Shiva. But we aren't starting with the familiar Mahadev, the great yogi of the modern era. Our mission today is to go back to his Adima, his primal form.
The Vedic deity, Rudra.
The fierce and baffling Vedic deity known as Rudra.
And that journey back is it's absolutely essential for you, the learner, because if you want to understand the modern Shiva's depth, you have to appreciate the profound contradictions woven into Rudra's earliest descriptions.
Right.
Think about Vishnu for a moment. His theological path is surprisingly well documented. You got the hymns in the Rig Veda, the famous statement Yanyo Vaivinu,
which establishes him as the spirit of the sacrifice.
Exactly. And then the avatars and a really linear evolution into the major bhakti cults. You can clearly span that journey.
It's almost like, it feels like reading a well-edited biography.
It is, exactly. Rudra is different. His path is discontinuous, almost explosive. He just sort of pops up in texts that are dedicated just to him, like the Nanaka Chamaka.
The Maharudra episode.
The reverence and praise in the Maharudra episode of the Brahmanas, And then you have the description of the Vrapya in the Atharva Veda, this group of wandering ascetics, which describes a figure that comes very, very close to his nature. He is a god of immense raw power, but also
immense strangeness.
Immense strangeness.
And that strangeness, that polarity, that's what sets our central puzzle. Rudra is the god who fundamentally stands on the boundary line. He's terrifying, yet deeply compassionate. He's central to cosmic order, yet. He is treated like an outsider in the main rituals. We're going to use textual analysis and look at the ancient legends to unlock this fundamentally bipolar nature.
And what's so fascinating here is where we start, the name itself. The word Rudra is derived from the root rud, which means to cry or to howl.
To howl.
Now, later Brahmin texts, they often try to soften this, suggesting he cried, and therefore he was known as Rudra, kind of implying he cried like a small, sentimental child.
That sounds like a theological attempt to domesticate him, to make him less scary.
It is, but the deeper, truer meaning is howling loudly. He howled. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, Rudra is the father of the Maruts, the wind gods.
Ah, okay.
This suggests Rudra stands for a powerful wind deity, like a tornado or a destructive storm, which makes a terrible howling sound when it arrives and moves about. He is the sound of chaos itself.
And here's where the contradiction immediately surfaces. You have this fierce, howling, terrible sound that defines his name, linked to the storm and chaos.
Right.
And yet the word Rudra is also used in the Vedas as a silent inner chant, or japa, a terrible external sound on one hand and a profound, silent, internalized prayer on the other.
It's like the culture is trying to contain the sound by turning it inward. And that duality, it extends to his physical nature and his effect on the world. He is often linked to Agni, the heat aspect, the destructive, consuming fire. He's the fiery, destructive force who brings fever and illness.
Okay.
Yet at the very same time, he is Vishashtamam.
The best physician.
The best of all physicians.
Wait, hold on. If he is the source of the heat and the fever, how can he also be the best physician? Isn't that like saying the arsonist is also the best firefighter?
It's a perfect analogy. It speaks to his power over the entire cycle. Because he controls the disease, he also controls the cure. He comes bearing divine, cooling, soothing, and healing medicines.
Wow.
His nature is simultaneously cruel, wild, destructive, but also kind, tranquil, and restorative. The Vedic seers, I think, they recognize that nature operates this way.
Right. The same storm that destroys also brings the rain that allows life to flourish. It's the ultimate hedging of bets. It's as if they knew they had to worship him for both the harm he could inflict and the healing he could grant. And this dual nature is structurally reinforced, as the sources note, by the 8 names Prajapati gave him at birth.
Yes, precisely. This structural dualism is fascinating. You have 4 destructive names: Rudra, Sharva, Ugra, the fierce one, and Asani, the thunderbolt.
These are the aspects you fear.
The ones you fear. But then you have their 4 benign counterparts: Pava, Pashupati, Mahadev, and Ishana.
So it's built into his identity from the very beginning. Every destructive element is immediately balanced by a benevolent one.
And even his weaponry reflects this tension. He is the archer, a terrifying figure who pierces and kills. He carries a very sharp, pointed javelin or spear called heti.
Okay.
But the prayer surrounding this weapon is incredibly revealing.
The sources emphasize that plea for grace, don't they?
Absolutely. The main prayer is that this sharp spear of Rudra should not hurt anyone. They acknowledge his terrible, immediate destructive capacity, but they immediately follow it with an appeal for him to show grace and kindness.
You worship the wild god.
You worship the wild god who stays in the jungles and the mountains, specifically the Himalayas, and looks after animals, which is why he is Prajapati, the lord of animals. You are petitioning him to control the very power that defines him.
Okay, so that brings us to this other really big theme in the sources. His unique sort of differentiated identity as an outsider. If he's so powerful and acknowledged, I mean, he has 8 divine names, why is he constantly placed on the boundary line of the pantheon? Why is he relegated to this subordinate status?
This is perhaps the most critical difference between Rudra and the other Vedic gods who are, integrated smoothly into the main structure of the sacrifice. When Rudra is praised, he is still treated differently in the ritual.
How so?
You are often required to go outside the main sacrificial ground to offer oblations to him.
He's literally kept separate from the mainstream religious action.
And that separation is meticulously detailed. The fire for his offering must be established in a dug hole, not on a proper altar. Crucially, the offering isn't a mantra sacrifice.
Meaning?
It is performed without the use of the sacred Vedic mantras. For a culture defined by the precision and power of the sacred word, a mantra sacrifice suggests a kind of power that is primal, untamed.
And outside the controlled, formalized structure of the Veda itself, it implies his power isn't derived from the Veda. It's a force the Veda has to acknowledge and appease.
Exactly. And the material offered is also differentiated. If other gods receive clean, normal rice, Rudra is given wild rice. If other gods receive a particular type of sacrificial pashu, an animal, Rudra receives a different, often wilder kind. This just reinforces the idea that he is fundamentally a god of the wild, untamed power that exists beyond the civilized boundary.
Beyond the village, or the sacrificial fire pit. I find the Shulagava sacrifice a perfect illustration of this. This was done to avert cattle disease in a cowshed, a very practical, very real-world concern.
It is a stunning example of his bipolarity. He is the one who sends the disease and the one who heals it. The ritual will require that the prasad, the offering, it must not be taken home.
You can't bring it back with you.
No, it must be actively left behind, either at a crossroads, in the cowshed, or, tellingly, in the cemetery. Think about that for a moment. You are dedicating the offering to him in the places of transition, disease, or death.
The boundary lines of society, where the roads meet, where the living meet the dead. And the sources point out that this specific practice, leaving strange offerings where 3 roads meet,
It's still observed today.
that connection is incredibly enduring.
It grounds this cosmic deity in the messy reality of ancient life and the fear of the unknown. And this outlaw identity, it extends to his followers. Here is the extreme contrast in his personal depiction that makes him such a unique figure. On one hand, he is depicted wearing a beautiful golden ornament called Nishka jewels, wealth, pure divinity.
Okay, so he's regal.
But in the same Rudra Sukta, he is praised as the god of those who roam the forests and who are explicitly thieves and highway robbers, sthuna.
Wow. So he is the patron god of the marginalized, the people existing outside the formal economy and social structure.
That's right. He is divine, living in the glorious mountains, wearing gold, yet he is also the protector of the outlaws, the thieves, and the marginalized.
What about his clothes?
Well, that's the other thing. If you look at the physical depictions that link him to the wilderness, he is Gaja Sharmatar clad only in a mere elephant hide garment.
So he wears the gold, but only the skin of a wild beast. This extreme duality, the bejeweled god and the wild outcast, is truly unique in the Vedic context.
And it mirrors the Vratya tradition we mentioned earlier, the outsider ascetics.
This tension, then, between the civilized and the wild must have created some theological problems. Let's look at how the ancient legends tried to tame or explain this wild power. These ancient stories, they really help connect Rudra's fierce nature with his eventual role as a cosmic controller.
The first and most famous is the story of Prajapati's sin, mentioned in the Aitareya Brahmana. It deals with cosmic creation and correction.
Okay.
Prajapati desired his own daughter, whom some identify as the sky, others as dawn or usas. To commit this incest, Prajapati transformed himself into a buck, and the daughter became a doe.
An act that was seen as a profound transgression of cosmic law.
A profound sin. So the other gods, witnessing this, pooled their most terrible bodies, their collective fierce energy, to create a new, terrifying deity, Pavan or Rudra.
And Rudra's job was?
Rudra then pierced Prajapati with his dart, stopping the incestuous act. This birth through violence is critical to understanding him.
So what are the implications here for us, for the listeners, about Rudra's role?
Well, several things become clear. First, his creation story indicates that the other gods existed before Rudra. This suggests he might have been a later addition or a figure absorbed into the Vedic pantheon.
Born out of necessity to control chaos.
Exactly. Second, he was literally born out of the pooled, fierce energies of the other gods, which immediately underscores his terrible and fearful nature. He's a force of necessary violence and correction.
And it confirms his identity as Prajapati, the lord of the animal world, since Prajapati and his daughter were in animal form when he intervened. This really confirms what scholars have observed. Rudra is the fire, the archer who destroys passion and initiates order. He is the conflicting nature of savior and destroyer rolled into one.
Is just when you think you understand him as this fearsome controller born of violence, the texts offer a story showing his gentler side.
The legend of Nabhanedishtha.
Yes. Nabhanedishtha, the youngest son of Manu, helped the Andhra sages attain heaven by communicating the knowledge of Brahman. In return for this great spiritual service, the Andhras gave him 1,000 cattle.
A huge gift for communicating the truth.
A huge gift. But while he was collecting the cattle, a huge figure from the north, clad ominously in black, stopped him.
And claims the cattle.
Claims all of it, asserting that anything remaining on the sacrificial site belongs to him.
So what did the boy do?
Nabhanedishtha, being a lover of truth, checks with his father, confirms the claim was true, and returns all 1,000 cattle to the black-clad stranger.
That is profound loyalty to truth and ritual law, even at a massive personal cost.
Absolutely. And this is where Rudra's compassion shines through. The black-clad stranger, who is Rudra, recognized that Nabhanedishtha had spoken the truth and had communicated the true Brahman, which was the Rudra Brahman chant itself to the fire priests.
So he sees himself in the boy's actions.
Recognizing himself in that potent, spoken truth, Rudra relinquished his material claim and gifted the 1,000 cattle back to the boy.
That's a wonderful pivot. He moves from the god who violently corrects cosmic sin to the generous benefactor who rewards selfless honesty and spiritual knowledge. The duality is just. It's maintained right to the end.
To synthesize all this, that foundational bipolar nature-fierce destroyer and kind physician, insider and outsider, the howling sound and the silent chant, the patron of thieves and the revealer of sacred truth, that was the necessary foundation for the complex, multifaceted persona of the modern Lord Shiva.
Right.
Shiva's later attributes, being the ascetic yogi, the occasional friction with other gods, his connection to both destruction and creation, and his deep kind-heartedness, all directly reflect these ancient, chaotic, yet enduring Vedic roots in Rudra.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner, as you reflect on this figure? I mean, we've mapped a god who is uniquely differentiated compared to the rest of the pantheon. He embodies the wildest, most unpredictable powers of nature.
The storm, the plague, the forest.
But crucially, the Vedic texts affirm that even these forces are ultimately controllable, or at least appeasable, through prayer, praise, and appropriate offerings.
Established right outside the boundary line.
Right outside the boundary line.
And this leads to a final provocative thought that ties back to his outsider status. This unique personality, constantly existing on the boundary of the sacrificial space, demanding wild rice and associated with crossroads and cemeteries, it suggests a historical dimension.
Meaning he wasn't originally part of the system.
Rudra may not have been a purely Aryan god from the start, but perhaps a powerful deity belonging to indigenous or aboriginal origins. It was the Vedic texts that later universalized him, ensuring his entry into the theological pantheon, but only by keeping him slightly quarantined. That enduring tension, the simultaneous embrace and exclusion, is precisely what makes Rudra and his successor Shiva endure as an eternal mystery of power that exists both within and beyond the limits of human control.